This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. October 10th is World Mental Health Day, and this year we're saying thank you, therapists. BetterHelp therapists have helped over 5 million people worldwide on their mental health journeys. That's millions of stories, millions of journeys, and behind every one is a therapist who showed up, listened, and helped someone take a step forward. Moments in therapy, like the right question, a safe space to cry, or a small win, can change lives. This World Mental Health Day, BetterHelp is honoring those connections and the therapists who make them possible, while showing how easy it is to get guidance from a licensed therapist online with BetterHelp. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally. And it works with an average rating of 4.9 out of 5 for a live session based on over 1.7 million client reviews. This World Mental Health Day, we're celebrating the therapists who've helped millions of people take a step forward. If you're ready to find the right therapist for you, BetterHelp can help you start that journey. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/PFF. That's betterhelp.com/PFF. Number 14, Oklahoma at South Carolina, 12:45 p.m. kickoff on SEC Network. Really, the storyline to know is, can Oklahoma bounce back from its loss to Texas this past week? It was the first loss of the year for the Sooners. They lost 23-6 in the Red River rivalry to their arch rival in Texas. Oklahoma went from number 6 in the AP poll all the way down to number 14. And they have one of the most daunting schedules in college football coming up, Dalton. The second half of Oklahoma's schedule includes 5 games against top 20 teams right now in number 5 Ole Miss, number 6 Alabama, number 10 LSU, number 11 Tennessee, number 16 Missouri. That's 5 of their last 6 games for Oklahoma. The only team that Oklahoma has left in the schedule that is not currently ranked is this week's game against South Carolina right now, who's looking to get back on track after losing 3 of their last 4 games. If Oklahoma, starts looking ahead to those games coming up and overlooks this game, and South Carolina wins this game, it may need to win all 5 of those top 20 matchups later on in the year to make the college football playoffs. So Oklahoma cannot be overlooking this road game against South Carolina this week.
That scenario we talked about earlier, where could a team at 9-3 get into the playoff? I think with their schedule, the most likely team that would be Oklahoma.
Yep.
When you look at their losses, if you've got 2 losses amongst that group on top of the one that they already have to Texas, you're talking about losing to maybe, let's say they lose to 3 of the 15 best teams in the country. I think as long as they look better than they did against Texas, because it was an ugly performance against Texas, I think Oklahoma would have at least some conversation about, this team has played maybe the hardest schedule in the country at 9-3. It's pretty brutal. So I think that is something that could be considered down the line. South Carolina's schedule too, and they're 3-3 with this game up first. Have you seen this? I got to be honest with you. Let's looking at South Carolina's real quick. If they don't win this game, I'm not sure they make a bowl game, because they've got their next 4 games: Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, A&M. And then you have the Clemson game, of course, at the end. You never know how that goes. If South Carolina doesn't win a game or 2 here pretty soon, they might not make a bowl game. So I think the level of urgency here just to get this thing back on track after losing their 3 of their last 4, it's going to be big for South Carolina. And they're another one. Get hot like you did last year. Win the last 6. Maybe at 9-3 you get considered again. I don't want to traumatize anybody from last year's experience, but no, you got 2 teams that this is pivotal for both of them in different ways.
Yep, absolutely. So, Dalton, you have the South Carolina offense in this one, with an offense that has been extremely reliant on Lenora Sellers at quarterback, with not a great supporting cast around him, going up against an elite Oklahoma defense. What should we know when they have the ball?
Look, it's an elite defense. They stop the run well. They stop the pass well. They prevent explosive plays with the best of them. Brent Venables has all the looks and exotic blitz packages on defense. But at the end of the day, what I'm looking for from this South Carolina team, does their offensive line have a pulse? At all, because this has really been the problem all year. It's been the problem the last couple years. Last year it was their biggest weakness. This year walking in, it was their biggest weakness. And I get that Lenora Sellers can break tackles and scrambles and do all the things that he can do, but when you're talking about going against David Stone and R. Mason Thomas and Grayson Halton and all these defensive linemen that Oklahoma has now, I thought this was the challenge for Texas last week, and Texas offensive line was up to it. So there is some hope if you're South Carolina. But they got to play better up front. You look at this season just in general, their offensive line, 109th in PFF grade, 89th in pass blocking grade, 124th, the 13th highest pressure rate allowed in the country, and 116th in run blocking grade. This offense is essentially, you've mentioned this before, hey, Lenoris, you got to be Superman, right? You got to work around this offensive line because we can't block anybody. You have to find some sort of pulse on the offensive line. Texas did it last week. They scratched their way to 23 points. They won a football game in a defensive-minded game. South Carolina, it's got to be the same blueprint, but they cannot continue to have these very, very below-average offensive line performances week in and week out in these SEC games. If they don't step it up even a little bit this week, they're going to get the same results offensively that they've gotten because they just haven't been able to block anybody at a high level.
Yeah, I'm looking at Oklahoma's offense in this game, and really is John Mateer truly ready to play this week because he had hand surgery on his throwing hand after injuring his right thumb in Oklahoma's win over Auburn. He was initially given a recovery timeline about a month at least, and he miraculously returned this past week against Texas. It was only 17 days after his surgery. And to say he struggled would be an understatement. A 31.1 passing grade, the worst not only this year, his entire career against Texas. He threw 3 interceptions. He had 4 turnover-worthy plays with no touchdowns and no big-time throws in the loss. Now, plenty of people were saying after the game, John Mateer is not physically ready to play in this game. John Mateer emphasized, hey, I was physically ready to play this game. I was not mentally ready to play this game. So his eyes were not ready to play this game. So Mateer emphasized, hey, I am healthy enough to play. I just wasn't mentally ready to play this game against Texas. He will need to bounce back this week against South Carolina. That should present an easier challenge than Texas. They do have talent on the South Carolina defense, like Dylan Stewart, of course, and some really good players in the secondary too. But right now, South Carolina is 100th in coverage grade this year and 54th in pass rush grade, whereas Texas is really good, obviously, in coverage and in pass rushing this year. So it will be an easier challenge, I think, for Mateer this week, but he better be mentally and physically ready to go, and he cannot play like he did against Texas, because otherwise South Carolina probably will pull off the upset.
Decision-making's got to be better. I mean, the 4 turnover-worthy plays, that's the highlight, is that, yes, it was inaccurate, but also he even said himself bad decisions, right? And he's trying to get practice reps and really get his eyes back to full speed in this offense that really, same thing on this side, I think he has to carry them, right? The run game hasn't been great. They've got Deion Burks, they've got Jaron Kanek, Isaac Sategna's been good at times, but a bit inconsistent. So it's not an offense, I don't think, for Oklahoma that has a ton of room for error, and they need the quarterback to play elite football. Mateer has to bounce back. He just has to. I think this is a fascinating matchup because I really do think this game. I'm not a fan of when people just they look at two teams and they go, oh, the quarterback's going against each other, right? Like that sort of thing. If there was a game where I was going to say that's the case, it's this one.
Yeah,
I think it really is about Sellers versus Mateer, and A, which one of these two offensive lines can just block somebody, right? And B, which one of them is going to make the backbreaking mistake? And a lot of it could come down to the scrambling and the improv with these two. It's going to be, I know Oklahoma's 14 here, but I think you got a very interesting game.
So, Dalton, we have differed in the last 3 games so far. Will we differ once again in this one, and will Oklahoma bounce back from his loss to Texas last week, or will South Carolina get a much, much needed win for that program right now?
All of the numbers on the surface tell me, yeah, Oklahoma, right? They're just better, right? The defense is elite. They prevent explosive plays. They do all the things that, just like LSU last week, with preventing the explosive play, especially through the air, that you should be able to do to beat Lenoris Sellers. And then I do some digging. And what I wanted to look at here, because I felt like, it's sometimes you get the early season stats. It can be a bit padded sometimes against those bad teams, right? When you get to play the Kent States and FCS teams and things like that. And when I looked at these two teams, when you look at a lot of the numbers when they play just Power 4 teams, it's kind of similar. And South Carolina, I mean, tell me this. If Oklahoma, instead of Michigan, Auburn, and Texas, if they played LSU, Missouri, Vandy, how many of those are you taking them to win?
Probably 2.
You think so?
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be hard fought, right? It would be like, it would not be, because I think any of those games, depending home and road, and matchup and all of that could go any which way.
Yeah.
Right? In the SEC, we know is so deep and so even. And obviously, South Carolina's lost all 3, which says something. But they got blown out by Vandy. The other 2 were pretty close games. I think these teams are extremely similar. I think Oklahoma's defense is a little bit better. Obviously, the coverage part of that is the big thing. But you look at their offenses. Not great offensive lines. Receiving cores that kind of run up and down a bit. You want a fun fact on Oklahoma? They have the second fewest rushing yards in the Power 4 from their running backs, only ahead of North Carolina. Their offense is just John Mateer trying to carry them, and South Carolina's is just Lenore Sellers trying to carry them. I think these teams are a lot more the same than we think. I'm going to go with the home team, Gamecocks, 20-17. Maybe against my better judgment with some of the surface numbers, and I'm digging too deep, but I'm going to do it. I think Mateer, they need him to step up, and we still don't know if he's 100% really. And the fact that he has to carry them so much, I think, especially in the run game, I think it's a problem because South Carolina's run defense has also been good aside from the Missouri game, and they're a wagon on the ground.
So this is our 5th game that we're previewing today, and we have differed on now 4 of those 5 games so far. I'm going Oklahoma. I have Oklahoma 27-17. I think the Oklahoma defense is going to shut down that South Carolina offense. And I think John Mateer will shake off enough rust in this one against an easier defense in South Carolina than he had against Texas last week. I think Oklahoma's going to bounce back with a road victory. But, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, we've differed now on 4 of the 5 games.
4 in a row.
4 in a row now.
4 in a row.
I don't think we've ever done that before.
Yeah, no, we've got some different arguments we're making here. Boy, I'll tell you what, the standings in our game picks they're gonna flip one way or the other.
They could flip, or we go 2-2 on those 4. And it's the same thing.
That's probably what will end up happening. We'll end up with the same record with 2 wildly different roads of getting there. Yeah, that's probably what will happen.
I'll tell you what, we have differed on 4 in a row. We could differ on 5 in a row because the biggest game of the week is up next.